And we are live with episode 136 of the Start, Build, Grow Show. Randy Brothers, my friend. What's going on, man? How we doing?
What is the word? Man, I'm just grateful, just grateful today, man. It's life is good. 2021 is here. I can't believe January is already gone. We're already 4 episodes into the season. What is this, episode number 37? And things are moving, working every day, making things happen, interacting, having an impact on the world, impact on people. So just grateful. And once again, we got more awesome guests reaching out and connecting. I was blessed with the opportunity to join Mike on his podcast, a couple months back, and now we're just kind of, networking and connecting. And he's got an awesome entrepreneur, awesome story, got his hands on a couple cool projects. So I'm excited to bring on Mike Merrill and chat with him and hear your story and share what we can to provide some value to the listeners. So thanks for everybody for listening. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, so you can get notified every time we release an episode. We do one episode every single week. And obviously, if you're joining us live on Facebook or after the fact, thank you for joining. Make sure to click the like button, subscribe, and click the little icon that gives you a notification every time we go live. So welcome to the show. Welcome, Mike. Thanks, Nick, for hosting. Let's go.
Thanks,
Let's do
Randy.
it.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for joining us, my friend. Appreciate it. So what's going on? So we always like to start, with the backstory, right? So that way we can kind of get a foundation of your background and how you got into the space that you're in now. So Mike, what's your background and what's your story?
So I grew up in construction, just right out of high school, like a lot of people. I didn't have any relatives in the space or anything. I always wanted to build my own house one day, so it was kind of a goal of mine. And was dating a girl that's dad was a contractor, and he was always razzing me and saying, "Hey, you gotta come work on my framing crew." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, right." I'm working, normal teenage jobs, and really didn't have any interest in going out in the hot sun and hefting plywood. But eventually, he got me. So after high school, I had to actually earn some money for once, and really start to think about building up a future and learning a trade or a skill. And so after a few months of doing that, I was hooked. I just loved it. Loved the trades, loved working hard, loved being out in the elements a little bit. I felt like when you finished a project, you really had something you could be proud of and drive past and, remember actually building something. And so that's kind of where my background started.
So were you getting your hands dirty at that point then? Were you actually doing the physical labor then?
Yeah. I basically, he threw me on a framing crew, and we had a huge, it was like a 7,000 square foot addition project, me and one other guy. So we were out there for months, and I learned a lot. This framer was incredible, very knowledgeable. He'd been doing it for 15, 20 years. And so he just mentored me and taught me everything he knew. And after a few months, I kind of had the hang of it, and I just kept kind of working in construction, and eventually got working for a larger builder. They were building about 100 homes a year in one project, and was managing 15 or 20 of those, kind of overseeing those. Really liked finished carpentry. I kind of had a knack for it and enjoyed that. So started hitting him up to do some finished carpentry on the side when we weren't doing the regular stuff. And he kind of let me start doing a few of those when he was in a pinch. And eventually I thought, I need to get my own license and be prepared. If this project slows down, then I'm going to do my own thing. And so eventually that's what happened, and started in the business. Like a lot of guys, again, on a crew, work your way up. You figure, I can do this. This looks easy. They're making all the big bucks, driving the big trucks. And, obviously reality smacks you in the face at some point when you have that attitude, but got into the trades from there, became a custom home builder, started building some tract houses and getting realtors and marketing and model homes, and really grew into something quite a bit larger than just framing homes and doing carpentry. So
Yeah, I love it. You and I got the same story there. That's how it is. Here's a hammer. Here's a tool bag. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
I miss those days though. Framing, that's kind of my if you were to say my trade, if you will. I love framing. It was a cool. I really enjoyed it actually. I really, if I'm going to do any sort of construction work, framing is definitely kind of my niche. And I look back at those days, and sometimes it's nice to just show up, do your work, and go
Right.
home.
Right.
Nowadays you get to wear your job with you all day, every day.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I built a couple of my own homes along the way. My first one, I was only 22, making $10 an hour, working nights, weekends, holidays to build my first home, and ended up doing concrete, plumbing, electrical stuff I'd never done. I roofed it, we painted it. I just did probably 60% of the labor on the entire house. Took me 7 months, and that was a great experience. And so I did that a couple times through the process, and eventually got into more development stuff. And one of my best friends and closest friends at the time that was also a builder, used to work with my company. He started his own too, and we would do joint projects. He one day had this idea because he was running 40 framers also, and just like my company, it was on paper, spreadsheets at best. And he just had this idea that there had to be a way to electronically collect time and labor and production instead of on paper. And so he had his best friend since kindergarten was a programmer, and then a cousin of his was a programmer. So he got talking to those guys, and pretty soon the four of us were working on building something for the old Palm Pilots way back in the early 2000s.
That
Oh
ain't
wow, you just dated yourself there, man.
At least I got a date, right? Oh.
So Mike, so you start going into building your own custom homes, right? It's your first time as a business owner. How were those first couple of years, and what did you kind of learn about running a business?
It was tough. I mean, you're working really hard, 10, 12, 14-hour days, doing your own payroll. I mean, just I like to hunt in the outdoors, and I like to travel, and I wasn't doing a lot of hunting, wasn't doing a lot of traveling, I just was working all the time. And even when I did get away, it seemed like I always came back earlier than planned or had some emergency to get back to. So just, sweating, working, grinding every day, like a lot of young entrepreneurs. So.
Mm-hmm. And how were you generating opportunities, to build some of these homes and stuff like that? Or how are you building these connections, relationships needed to kind of get the company off and running?
So initially, I mean, a lot of the jobs I got were from people that maybe I worked on their home in the project when I was working for the other builder. Maybe they needed a basement finished or a deck or just small projects, some shelving. Maybe they were going to move and build another home. So just made friends with all of our customers. And so eventually when they had little things, they would ask me about those. And so that's how it started. And then it was just word of mouth for a long time until I got to really doing the heavy volume stuff. It was more that way. And eventually it was more realtors, model homes, a whole different level of marketing and a whole different. But,
very cool, man. So, obviously, you eventually started to go into, looks like 2003, into starting or founding, About Time Technologies and now, WorkMax. But before we dive too much into that, once we kind of tell your story there, we're going to be talking today about how roofing companies can improve their operational efficiency and champion, processes that maximize profit for their company. Now, through your experience, why did you start About Time Technologies, and how, tell us a little bit more about that company?
So so essentially, like any contractor, you're going back through, and people say all the time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or, I've been doing it this way for 30 years and, I'm not going to change. Or that always bothered me. It didn't resonate for me. I always wanted to be better. I always wanted to be more efficient. I always wanted to figure out, how can I get an edge? How can I get ahead when other people are sleeping or vacationing or, doing other things? How can I move up a couple steps and get further ahead so that I can kind of dictate the workload that I have and the opportunities that I can create? And so what happened is, again, the whole paper and spreadsheet thing was the biggest problem that I ever had in my business, was tracking labor. and the hassle that it was. And, guys turn in time cards and, they weren't even there on that day, or they were at a funeral, or they had a dentist appointment, but somehow the hours were it wasn't even just full time, it was overtime also. So it's like, you're just paying an excessive amount of money. And so we just realized that everybody we knew in construction seemed to have the same problem. So we felt like we were really onto something. And so we just after hours at night on weekends, we met together like for over a year every Tuesday night, and it'd start at like 6 p.m. And a lot of times we go till 1 or 2 in the morning, just working on deliverables and dividing and conquering and working on marketing pieces. And then our partners that were the programmers were writing the code. And so we'd come back the next week and report on what we'd completed and talk about what our next steps were and what else we were going to do. And after about a year of that, we had a product that worked. We could clock in on a Palm Pilot, pick our job, pick our cost code, what we're working on, and then synchronize that data and it'd go back to the computer and it showed up. So we print a time card that was digitally collected. And so we felt like, okay, we got something marketable. So we picked the 4 surrounding states to Utah where we're at, and we bought a list and we mailed out 5,000 CDs that you put in on this little envelope thing, and nasty graphics, terrible colors, but it looked cool to us back then. And we shipped those out. And as soon as we did that, we set up a phone in my buddy's construction office, my partner, and I sat there at that phone and waited for people to call and was cold calling people and talking to my friends. And within maybe 2 months of doing that, we had 8 or 10 customers. We had money in the bank. I mean, it just flourished, and we've never looked back, never taken outside funding, really. We're just self-funded, bootstrapped business trying to solve problems that we experience on our own.
That's pretty cool, man. Great story. Now, Randy, what do you think about that? I mean, you've been in the construction space for some time now too. What do what have you been seeing with these problems with, your companies and clients that you work with now with the Roofing Academy?
Well, first off, I just like the story, man. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs watch this show, right? And that's an example of of entrepreneurship at its core is trying to solve problems, find a way to solve a problem in your market or whatever niche you're doing, and be willing to put in the time and energy to execute, right? I mean, every night for every week consistently over and over and over, they spent a year, they committed a year not knowing anything, not knowing if they're going to make any money, not knowing, but just believing in a concept and believing in the process. And here we go, we got a business that's been thriving for a long time. But to answer your question, I mean, construction companies in general, I mean, we're still lagging on technology and efficiencies and being able to leverage that to make our jobs efficient, right? Early on doing construction work, when I first started my business, I was doing building homes and I was a general contractor, and then we had our own crews and doing things like that. But it was all just pen and paper, right? And then when we started a roofing company, right off the bat, we started a service department. We were doing service work, which is hourly based. We want to figure out how many hours are allocated to each service project or repair job. And it was all just pen and paper. And we had like a little, here's your work order, just your print off a work order. Here's your work order for the day, and handwrite in your hours at the end of the day, and then turn that in at the end of the week, and we'll pay you. And who knows how efficient that was, right? Who knows? You just had no way of, like you said, the problem, like we had no way of knowing, if that was super accurate or not. So it's definitely a challenge there, even in the roofing space. I know a lot of us do service work. A lot of us want to figure out how to do in-house. If you're doing in-house labor or in-house service work, you've got to be able to job cost, and you've got to be able to track time, starting with tracking time efficiently. And that's what Mike's dedicated this portion of his career to solving that problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make sure you guys are checking it out at workmax.com, and let's dive into field labor tracking, right? So, Mike, what tips do you have for people who might be struggling in this area? Obviously, they should be checking out WorkMax and stuff like that. But do you have any tips that you could kind of share with people out there?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for sure, is when you're dealing with paper or Excel or some other process that's after the fact, you're begging for inaccuracy. You're begging for rounding to happen. And usually when rounding happens by field guys, of course, they're human. They're going to round it in their favor. They're not going to round it the other way. Their check's going to be more, not less. And so just documenting things accurately and using tools, it's like a DeWalt drill. I mean, nobody uses a Phillips screwdriver to, put in a whole deck. I mean, that, maybe a light switch, but, there's better tools for that job. And so WorkMax is just a way better tool. And not only is it better to document, but we have things like GPS and a geofence around the project so we can validate. We have facial recognition. So when they clock in and out, we can confirm that it is that employee that is clocking themselves in. It's not a buddy giving them extra time when they're out golfing on the back nine or, not there. So.
100%. But you said a better tool. I just want to let you know, I used to work for Milwaukee Tools. So it's actually not DeWalt. It's actually Milwaukee Tools, a better tool for you guys out there. All right. And I want to.
You don't get paid to say that anymore. It's
I did. That's
better
true.
Tool, not the best tool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. Well said. Well said. Good save. All right. Well, then also too on the job costing accuracy too. And I want to hear you first on this, Randy. I mean, what tips do you have for guys out there roofing that might be struggling with their numbers, job costing accuracy, right? And not really understanding maybe even the concept of that and how to improve that.
Well, the reality of it is that inefficient job costing is one of the most prevalent challenges and prevalent things that we deal with from a coaching perspective that no one talks about and no one really understands. There's a lot of people that start roofing companies, with all the right intentions. They just never been taught properly how to job cost, so they're just, trying to figure it out and trying to figure out how to allocate, whatever labor materials towards each job and figure out what their margins are and great. But the reality of it is there are a lot of line items and there are a lot of things that you can, if collected properly, that you can allocate towards a job specifically, and you could build systems and infrastructure around that to where it's all automated and checking out. But one of the challenges that we face, one of the challenges I try to help solve is, as an owner, I want to be able to finish up a job and look at that job and know exactly what every single cost was, all the way down to the merchant fee. They're down to the merchant fee for the credit card transaction. I want to know every single thing that can be allocated in that job, so I know what my actual margin is on that job. That alone is the foundational element of everything you need to know to be able to build and grow and scale and plan and create strategic plans to grow a business. I mean, how do you know how much you can even budget for marketing and budget for hiring people and budget for all the different things, the fixed costs, if you don't know exactly what all your costs of goods sold are? And that's, job costing in a nutshell, is knowing exactly what every piece of that job is and how to cost it appropriately.
When you're talking to roofing contractors, what percent do you think are doing a good job when you first start working with them in terms of knowing how much money they're making per job?
I mean, I don't want to give like a specific percentage, but more people than you would expect aren't properly job costing.
Very interesting. Mike, what do you have to add on to that, my friend?
So I would say, that today, I mean, we more than half, so over 50% of the companies we talk to are on paper still, not even spreadsheets. Another 25% are using a combination of paper and spreadsheets. And then 25% have gone to some automated tool or something to try and log this. So that's 3/4 of the market at least that are still using old, outdated tools that just aren't giving them the accuracy. And I was just on a call earlier today with a legal consultant out of the state of California. They've got a company that is having some challenges, and they contacted us because we can help document the data that they need for payroll compliance. And we can track the workers' comp codes on each of these cost codes that they're working on. So their work comp premiums can go down. So their savings, besides just overtime and accurate hours, that companies are getting with this, and especially roofing. I mean, I have one case study. One of our large customers has over 1,000 employees. They're a roofer. That's a lot of employees.
Yeah.
But you can do the math as I give some of these statistics. They spent about 90 days doing an internal audit to find out what our product was saving them. And if you can believe this, the first year they saved $4.7 million over their prior processes.
Wow.
And that's a combination of overtime savings, manual data entry, inaccuracies, reduced overtime. The list goes on and on. So yeah, 1,000 employee company, that's big. There's not a lot of roofers out there that are that size, but let's take that back to 100. So that's 470,000 that a 100 employee company would have saved with those same efficiencies. Let's say you have 10 employees, right? It's 47,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. To earn that money, you've got to actually, that's your profit margin. That's cash, right? If you're working on 10% margin and you want to save 47 grand as a 10 employee roofing company, right? How many jobs do you have to complete to put that 47 grand back in your pocket? I mean, it's nuts. Mm-hmm. And so the quickest thing you can do to control your costs is to lock down that largest variable expense in your roofing business or any construction company. That's labor. That's the big question mark. I know what shingles cost me. I know what the felt is and the drip edge, and those are commodities. They go up and down, but I generally can budget and estimate what those are going to cost. The labor, it depends.
Yeah, and especially, there in our business there's a big difference. Some companies are all labor and they have in-house labor. Most companies are doing subcontracted labor, and a lot of companies kind of have like some sort of a hybrid of the two. Mm-hmm. And especially a lot of the companies I work with a lot of them do have subcontracted labor, and rightfully so if they're trying to scale and be able to kind of handle storms and different things like that. But everybody, we try to encourage and help them develop a service department. And that's where it's like smaller jobs. Those day jobs can be very profitable and very lucrative for your business, but how do you track that properly? And even if it's one person that you're bidding, hey, it's going to take 4 hours to do this project, and here's my materials, here's my labor budget, and here's the contract. All of a sudden, that job took 8 hours or 10 hours or 2 days. We deal with this too. Like you all of a sudden, you what you thought was going to be a high margin job or do something well, you just wiped it right out the door because of inaccurate labor projections and inaccurate labor tracking. You just killed all your margin right then and there. And not to mention the person checking, right? If you're doing it all by hand, mm-hmm. There's got to be somebody to check and approve and write those checks. And if it's all automated, you press a button, it goes into the QuickBooks or your accounting software, and you press another button and it prints out all the checks. Or if you're even more sophisticated, it's automatically depositing those checks. Yeah. And that alone, imagine like the time savings of not having to shuffle those papers over a year or 2 or 3 year span it's crazy when you really start adding that up.
Well, Randy, aren't you a paper-free company?
We are. Yeah. We don't
paperless.
Paper. Yep.
Paperless company. Well, cool. So we're going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and then we'll kind of dive into payroll and service department efficiencies. And Randy, I'd love to hear, I know you got some stuff going on the service side. I'd love to hear, your advice in terms of having a successful service department just in general. But we'll start with our headline sponsor, Job Nimbus.
Job Nimbus is a fully customizable back office solution.
Track leads, jobs, tasks from one easy-to-use software.
And with the largest ecosystem of integrated partners, if we don't do it, we have a friend who does.
Learn how the #1 back office system in roofing
can help you be efficient, be organized, be professional, and be profitable.
So if you guys have not checked out Job Nimbus yet, make sure you're checking them out. info.jobnimbus.com/roofing-academy. Now we got our friends at Sumo Quote. Are you looking to stand out with your proposal? Sumo Quote is the contractor quote that crushes the competition. It is the fastest way to build custom quotes that impresses clients and wins more work. It's one of those must-have technologies for roofing contractors, allowing them to sell faster, sell more, and sell smarter. Be sure to check them out at try.sumoquote.com/start, build, grow. You got to check out Sumo Code. And if you haven't, like I said, you can go to the link that we just mentioned, or I mean, you could go hit up Ryan Chance on Facebook. I'm sure he'll help you out. And then last but not least, Company Cam.
Stop driving job site to job site or texting and emailing photos. Know what's happening across your business. Get started for free today.
Like they said, try it for free. CompanyCam.com/SBG show. All right, now back to the show. So let's dive into some more of the service department stuff. I mean, Randy, what do you got going on the service department side, and how can you, get something going successfully in the service department side?
Well, I mean, it starts with a commitment, right? You need to make a commitment and be able to define a role for a service technician. I mean, it's hard to just go from zero to being consistently busy like all day, every day with service. You can get there, definitely get there. I mean, we stay consistent all year long with service, but the key is finding that person that's kind of a flex player, like somebody that can do, a number of different things within their business, and somebody that can help with service and do repairs, but that can also help with field support and helping, production management stuff, material runs, maybe even looking at identifying leaks or estimates, or you want to have someone that's kind of versatile to help you bridge that gap to getting a service department started. So we found that early on. We found somebody that had a lot of roofing experience and knew how to do a lot of repairs, but then we also had them doing a number of other things to help support the production department while simultaneously we worked on building, a brand that does service repairs and targeting, SEO and search engine things for roofing repairs. And then also through all of our networking, we basically were able to say, hey, we do repairs, and you can kind of build your reputation pretty quick if you can do repairs. And a lot of companies don't do repairs. And so it gives you an advantage if you can kind of market through that channel, and it actually creates other opportunities. And then once you kind of build that up, you're able to just, one at a time grow from there, and add another person and diversify what you're able to target and market towards, and one at a time grow a service department, add trucks, wrap those trucks. I mean, the branding that you get from service techs, I mean, they're all over town all the time. And you have a wrapped service truck that can get you a lot of business there too. So, I mean, it just takes a commitment, making sure you're going to market and brand yourself as a repair service company with the capacity to do that. And you can build and scale it. And, now we're at the point where we're trying to find more people. I mean, we get pretty busy with service in different times of the year. And you're able to kind of build a segment for your business that can stay consistent all year long.
How profitable has that been for your business, and has that been a really good add-on for the company?
So there's two different ways to look at it. You can look at it from a profit center. If you really want to go all in, the margin is greater than any other segment within roofing. But I didn't even look at it as like, oh, I'm going to create a bunch of profit, because the jobs are small, right? 1,500, 300 small jobs, higher margin, smaller jobs. But I look at it as, if I can even just support that by itself and it pays for itself, it helps grow the other sides of the business, the residential and the commercial side, because it supports those, and it helps me get in and open a lot more doors that I wouldn't be able to open otherwise. So it can be a profit center, but it's not large enough job sizes to in roofing specifically, it's like the average ticket is 10% of the average ticket of a full re-roof. So
Yeah.
to move the needle tremendously from a revenue perspective, not going to happen, but it can easily pay for itself and even drive a little bit of profitability to be able to use to invest in other areas of the business. But I look at it as like a key cog in the wheel to build out a diversified roofing company that can handle all facets of roofing.
So key to relationships, diversification. Now, Mike, one thing I wanted to touch on with you is, you said that you worked with a roofing company that with 1,000 employees. So that is a massive company, right? And that's a place that anybody would want to go to in the space, of course, right? And you said that you were able to save them millions with WorkMax. Now, with your experience with working with roofing companies, what are some things that people, some errors, I guess, that people are making in terms of, tracking or missing or not really understanding their profits or anything like that, that you think could be a big impact or improvement if they were able to kind of identify and fix those?
Well, great question. So kind of going back to some of what Randy was saying with service departments, especially when you're doing T&M billing, when you've got a tool that's accurately tracking time to the minute, and we have rounding rules and other things you can put, if you're going to bill the nearest 15 or whatever it is, but the accuracy and then the timeliness, the fact that they have that data in real time, live field data, you can bill tomorrow morning on what you finished today. And anybody that we've ever worked with was not able to do that previously to getting our product in place. So they're hitting earlier billing cycles. They're getting paid quicker. When there's questions on an invoice, those questions are few and far between, and they don't usually end up in an argument or a discussion like a lot of those things happen in construction when, they're saying, there's no way it took that long. It wasn't that bad, blah, blah, blah. But when you're documenting this accurately and tracking it in real time, those data points just don't get questioned. And companies that you're doing work for start to learn you've got a tool in place to make sure that you're treating their money with the same respect that they're treating their own money.
100%. And just having that clarity of the numbers and actually having that data allows you to make better business decisions, right? What do you think about that, Randy? Those numbers, how important is knowing the numbers, my friend?
Oh, it's everything, man.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. I mean, my mission is in life at this point as a coach and consultant is to teach contractors how to become CEOs, how to go from working in your business to working on your business. And the single most important, well, I guess there's two. The two most important things to that is embracing growth as a leader, but also embracing how to run your company by the numbers. So everything that's trackable and measurable, you need to be tracking and measuring in your business. Hands down, everything needs to be measured one way or another. And with WorkMax and all these, there's so many tools out there to help you do that. Like there's no reason why you can't make that transition way easier nowadays than it would have been 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you had to manually track everything, and it was hard to run your business by the numbers because everything's written down and manually tracked. But now it's just click of a button and or automations, and it just tracks for you. So then it's just a matter of, okay, which reports are important and how to make decisions based off the numbers that you're tracking.
100%. Well, as we start to kind of close this thing out, Randy, you know the drill, right? We have the Golden Nugget, right? So for the 136th time, and then Mike, to give you a heads up, I'm gonna make you share one with the viewers as well. Something they want to leave the viewers with, as something they can implement, a mistake they can avoid, a piece of advice, whatever it might be. Randy, for the 136th time, what you got? What's your Golden Nugget today, my bud?
I don't want to be too basic here, but I mean, how do I not just elaborate on the numbers thing, man? I mean, track your numbers, know your numbers, run your business by the numbers, and your life will change. And if you want to be a true CEO of a business, you got to be able to make CEO level decisions. And how do you make CEO level decisions? Is you look at the numbers and you make decisions based off the numbers, not just your gut feeling. So track everything, measure everything, and figure out how to make the best decision for your business. And you'll start seeing significant growth, as well as more you'll free up your time as well as a CEO of your business.
I love it. Mike, what do you got for us?
Well, so to just cap on a little bit of what Randy said there, the one thing that, as it relates to numbers, I mean, you can't manage what you don't measure. I love that quote. And in construction, everything typically has to get measured in order to get put in properly and done correctly and not have to redo something. So there's no spell check on a calculator. 7 keystrokes out of every 100 on any keyboard at all are a typo. They're they were not intended to be typed. So with your payroll, with dollars, those are not things that you can leave to chance, or that you should be leaving to chance. And so I think generally speaking, if you're in business, and you all are, again, like you were saying, Nick, they're not roofers. They are businessmen that are in the roofing business.
And women, lots of women in the business nowadays.
Or women. That's right.
Yeah. Got to keep it there.
So these business owners, these entrepreneurs, these people that are putting their risk out there, wearing it on their sleeve all day, every day, leaving all of these things exposed, need to control those numbers, just exactly like Randy was saying. And so let's get a tool in place that can measure that data live as it's happening, so you can bill quicker, bill more accurately, your payroll's more accurate, your estimates are being measured, and then when you're ready to do the next job, you're basing it off of accurate data and truly what you feel like your crews can perform to, and you'll be substantially more profitable, just like the roofing company that I talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
So real quick, man, I know we got a couple minutes here. We're back. How do we get a hold of you? And first off, yeah, how do we get a hold of you if we want to connect and learn a little bit more about what you do and how you're able to automate?
Thank you. So our website is workmax.com. We have a LinkedIn group or page. We share a lot of content there. We do have the podcast. It's called the Mobile Workforce Podcast. You can get it on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, any of the podcast platforms. Like you mentioned, Randy, you were a guest on that. And I just re-listened to that this morning, and man, that was a golden episode. Just so good. Awesome. I enjoyed it just as much the second time. So appreciated you coming on. But we're out there, and we're at the Roofing Expo. We're at all the big trade shows. We definitely get out there, and we love roofing. We are proud partners with the International Roofing Expo and various consortiums around the country. We're excited to have an opportunity to talk to you about your business and see if we can be helpful.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I was going to plug the podcast. So you did it great. That was a lot of fun. And definitely check out his podcast as well. And appreciate you joining us, my friend.
You bet.
Well, thank you guys. Mike, appreciate you joining us, and everybody else out there listening. Thanks for tuning in to episode 136 of the Start Build Grow Show.